And now, marine weather around Alaska.
All right, for tonight's forecast, this weak system here just producing precipitation, light rain here, and not much in the way of any wind at all here from the eastern Aleutians up into the southwest interior. Bristol Bay, light rain, Kodiak Island. Fair, high pressure, Gulf of Alaska, keeping it nice over southern Alaska here. Showers and thunderstorms slowly diminishing in the interior. And fair over the southeast coast with a low cloud deck kind of redeveloping over the inside waters. And for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, some partial afternoon clearing there for the southeast coast, especially on the inside waters, to a lesser extent, probably staying cloudy out along the outer coastline. Same thing here for the North Gulf Coast, showers and thunderstorms again in the interior. This front weakens and keeps it cloudy and occasionally damp over Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula. Nothing out over the Bering Sea. Light winds from the Bering Strait and the Chukchi Sea all the way down to the Aleutians. And that holds through Thursday as well. Very light wind conditions out here all the way northward into the Chukchi Sea. And dry from the north slope in the Arctic coast with sunshine and showers and thunderstorms again developing in the interior a little farther to the west than tomorrow. And again, down to the southwest and up to the Brooks Range. Fair here over southern Alaska, partly sunny skies and generally cloudy for the southeast coast. And for the coastal water forecast, light south to southwest winds at 10 knots there for the south coast, south winds at 10 on the central coast, east-southeast at 10 knots for the north coast. And for the inside waters, winds south 10 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet. Light variable winds for the inside waters of the Panhandle on Thursday. Otherwise, south to southeast, 10 to 15 knots on the south coast, and east-southeast winds 15 knots for the central and north coast. Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast tomorrow. Variable winds at 10 knots with seas running 4 feet here out over the ocean in the Sound, about 2 feet. Southeast 15 for the Barren Islands, southeast 20 for Kamishak Bay. Cook Inlet, light south to southwest wind at 10 knots with 3-foot seas. And for Thursday, Cook Inlet, light southwest breeze in the afternoon at 10 knots, 2 to 3-foot seas. Light and variable winds for Kamishak Bay. Northeast winds of 15 knots, though, for the Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast. And variable winds at 10 to 15 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Variable winds at 10 knots for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, east to northeast breeze at 15 knots for the day Wednesday, 3 to 6-foot seas there. And variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. Southeasterlies at 20 for Bristol Bay. And for Thursday, variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. Light northerlies at 10 for Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island, northeast winds 20 knots with 5-foot seas. And for the central and eastern Aleutians for Wednesday, variable winds at 10 knots. Western Aleutians, north to northeast winds 15 knots. And then for Thursday, for the Aleutians here, just call it variable. 10 to 15 knots for the entire Aleutian chain there with seas running anywhere from 1 to 4 feet. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, wind southeast at 15 knots. Otherwise, variable at 10 for the Pribilofs, east winds 15 knots for St. Matthew Island, and light east winds at 10 knots for the Yukon Delta coast, Norton Sound, and St. Lawrence Island. Outlook for Thursday. Light winds in Norton Sound, east at 5 knots, east at 10 for St. Lawrence Island, southeast 10 for the Yukon Delta coast, west at 10 here south of Nunivak Island. Light variable winds out over the Bering Sea from the Pribilofs to St. Matthew Island. Up along the Arctic coast, east winds 15 to 20 knots for the central and east side. And the western Arctic coast, we've got small craft advisories. East winds at 25 knots. Otherwise for the Chukchi Sea, kind of a variable wind pattern there at 5 to 10 knots. And then for Thursday, north winds 10 to 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea. Northeast at 20 for the western Arctic coast. East at 15 on the central coast. And the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, winds will be northeast at 10 knots.